Hello, founders. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your first customer loving your MVP in a way that you can tell investors so you can raise that pre-seed or seed funding, that early stage funding. This is all part of my ongoing startup early stage funding canvas. This is a tool that I have created for you so you can plan your early stage fundraise step by step and everything you're going to need. It's also the tool that I'm using to select the startups that we're going to invest in with my YouTube Angel Fund, and I've got other investors on board with that. If you watch my other videos, you know this is an ongoing series. You can watch the other parts of it. This is going to catch you up to this step. I'm going to include a playlist that you can watch, you can see, but this is a standalone video unto itself. Check out my other videos and you'll see what we're up to. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kank, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times, and I say this all the time. So I want to tell founders that I have learned just as much from my failures as my successes. I want to be open and transparent, and that's to your benefit, because I like to use videos like this to make sure that you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes. I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier, especially if you're an early stage founder and you're raising that pre-seed or seed raise. First $100,000 is going to be so important for you. It's great to get that done. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I've advised hundreds of founders, thousands of founders have gone through our program. If you're part of Startups.com, thank you so much for your support. If not, feel free to check us out. We got lots going on there. Do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Let's jump into this video, and I'm going to show you how to raise that funding by getting that first customer who's going to love your product. Let's catch us up in the tool. If you've seen this before, let's do a quick review. You are going to move from the outside inside and eventually talk to investors at your appropriate stage. This is important. Not all investors are the same, and we're going to plan to talk to pre-seed investors or seed investors, early stage investors, and it's important we keep that in mind. The next thing at the bottom, you're going to do this program, this plan, this model, and get you to the point where you've got key metrics that you can show investors. That's what we're building towards, those metrics, that traction that investors are going to say, yep, you have already de-risked the investment. I'm in. Let me give you some money. First, as we've caught up, this is the other video, you're going to do a unique value proposition. You've got it. It's clear, concise, compelling, contrarian. You have it clarified. You've tested it. You've validated it. Next, you are going to go get your ideal or initial customer profile figured out, your ICP, and we talked about this in other videos. You can watch that. There's a difference between early adopters and the early majority because you're an innovator. So it's the innovation adoption curve. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out there. But you're going to take your product, unique value proposition, and then you're going to attach your user ICP, and those are going to come together. And then what you're going to do is find one user to love your product. Now, this is metaphorical. You can get many more users to love your product, but I use the word one because it's more important that you have one user absolutely in love with your product than 10 users that say meh, 100 users that say meh, maybe they download, they churn. You want to find that one user who absolutely loves your product. This is so critical. Now, how are you going to do that? That's the question. Well, first, you're going to MVP that product. You're going to MVP your product unique value proposition to your user ICP. And MVP does not necessarily mean it's the product itself. It stands for minimum viable product. Let's talk about that for just a moment. In one of my startups, the one that interviewed down at Y Combinator, I went and sold the product and I delivered the product manually. That is one of the hacks that you can do. I've got other founders that are doing it. I did a service, a consulting service, and I did it manually, and I literally faked my platform. I faked the software. So I sold it and I said, what's this worth to you if I solve this problem? If I bring this to you, what would you pay? They said $3,000. I said, done. I'm going to do it. And then I went and did it manually. That was my MVP. There are other instances where different types of MVPs will go out and help you determine whether the customer is going to love your product. For example, I have a video game company. It's one of the companies in our venture studio portfolio. And instead of a video game up front, we decided to create just a card game. And we wanted to see if people love playing the card game. And then beyond that, we broke it down into novels and books and intellectual property and content to see if people start to love that. And I got some good confirmation. I actually had someone tell me, hey, can I actually see this card game? So we're experimenting all the way along without having to spend all the money on developing the video game. We're testing out minimum viable products. And you can do this all all over the place with prototypes, case studies, user cases where you're just experimenting with proof of concept. Like I said, landing pages, pre-selling. I had another startup where we pre-sold, investors weren't listening, and so I demoed it out manually, and then we did a crowdfunding campaign because we got enough signals from the market that people were going to buy. We identified who they were, and we reached out to them using rewards-based crowdfunding, and we sold about $45,000 of the product, and then I showed that to investors, and they were interested. An MVP does not have to mean a light version of your product. You do not have to go out, and it actually might be irresponsible for you to go out and spend all this money developing a product that you don't know if it's going to work. So that's the reason you want to research the MVP. There are so many ways that you can MVP. Dropbox did a video where it was a demo and had people sign up. You can fake it. You can do Wizard of Oz MVP, where you go in and you duct tape a whole bunch of other apps together. I've seen founders do that with WhatsApp, with texting apps, and they literally just pretend that there's a machine or there's a program when they're actually just typing, or they use a bot. There are so many out-of-the-box things that you can do. You can program your own chatbot and install it on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, all over the place. There are different ways to do that MVP, but what you want to do is set an assumption and create an MVP and see if the customer is going to love your product. If it's not the product, the problem that you're solving, they come to you and say, thank God you're solving this problem. They love you for even existing. That might be a way that you're going to MVP. Do not waste your money on developing the product itself unless you've tested the assumptions and you know you're going to get the right signals of what they want and what they don't want and what they are going to love or what they're not going to love. This is so important. It's critical. Take some time, learn what an MVP is, and do an MVP properly. Next, what you are going to do is you are going to do founder-led sales. Founder-led sales. You're not going to go and try and do an ad campaign. You're not going to do content marketing strategy. You're not going to try anything, even setting up an e-commerce store. You are literally going to go out, hand-to-hand combat, stare somebody in the eye, and sell your product to them. You're going to explain, and you're going to pitch your unique value proposition and say, this can solve your problem. Here it is, and you are going to get them to try it. Founders might be very scared, and I understand rejection is a hard thing, but unless you're willing to go do that, you're not going to learn what the user needs, and you're not going to hear their story. Everything can be solved with a really great user interview, a customer discovery interview, and that's what you're going to find out. When you start to try and sell this to people, they're going to give you feedback, and they're going to brush you off, or your opening line's not going to be good. They're not going to like what you have to say. Your value proposition is not unique enough, or it's not compelling enough. Maybe you're selling a vitamin versus a painkiller, and you need to make it a painkiller. I don't know what it is, but you're going to get so much feedback. If you're unwilling to do founder-led sales, that's not the type of founder that we want to invest in. That's not the type of founder. You will not be the type of founder that investors want to invest in if you're not willing to get face-to-face. But if you are willing to get face-to-face with customers, with users, and say, I'm going to look you in the eye and I'm going to sell you this, I'm going to pitch it to you, and I'm going to see whether you want to buy it or use it or try it or not, that is what you need to be doing. And if you can do that, investors are going to be impressed because you're going to be able to tell those stories. Remember, we are trying to develop a story, a narrative, so you can tell the investors everything that you're learning and you're going to impress them. Then you are going to observe them using the product. You are just going to watch them and you're going to do this. Where the other day, I had a founder give me a demo and he had to sit and explain to me, click this, click that. Well, then he's not going to know whether I have those magic aha moments because he had to explain to me probably faulty design, the experience needs to be changed. So you literally want to sell it to them and say, hey, try it. They bite off on your unique value proposition, and then you give it to them and you let them try it. You let them use it. Or you get someone else to deliver it and you observe them. That's all you have to do. You're not going to stand over their shoulder and say, oh, but this button's supposed to be here and it's supposed to work like this. If it fails, it fails. If they don't like it, they don't like it. Learn from it and say, how can I fix this for the next time? And if you're delivering something manual, well, just deliver the manual and don't make excuses for it. Just do the service for them and see how they respond. That's so important. So take your MVP, and then you're going to do founder-led sales and say, please use my MVP. Get people to try it, and then you're going to watch them use it, and that's going to show you so much information. Let me remind you, say nothing. Say nothing, and you will get all that information. Then after, what you're going to do is ask them questions about their experience. You're going to ask them these questions, and I've got these questions I always ask in what, when, how, who, just so I keep them in order in my mind, and I ask the right questions. You're going to ask, what did you experience? Tell me about your experience. What did you experience? And just give it to me, explain to me. And if they say, no, I was lost, I didn't know what to click, I was confused, you're going to say, okay, great. Tell me more about that. You're going to be very open. And I know it's going to be nerve-wracking. You're putting yourself out there. You're vulnerable. It's like getting an art critique. It's not easy, but that's how you're going to learn. Because if they say, it was so frustrating, I threw it out the window, then you've got a data point, and that's how you're going to improve. This continuous improvement loop is going to continue to develop, and you are going to improve your product as you go. Next, you're going to ask, when did you use it? Ask them, like specifically, when did you use it? Was it a specific time of day? You're going to observe that when it crossed their mind, when it became convenient, when the pain became too bad. You're going to ask them when, and ask them, what were you thinking in that moment? Ask them to describe their mindset in that frame of time, because you can recreate that pocket of time. Recreate that pocket of time to sell over and over again, which is going to become important as we move on to the rest of this canvas. Then you're going to ask, how did you make the decision? How did you decide? What was a triggering moment? What was that point in time where you said, yep, I'm going to start using this. I'm going to make the decision. You want to ask them that question, because if they can tell you what that moment is, let's say you've got a product that, I don't know, sells to people who just got a divorce. It's an important product. And they say, it was my divorce with this particular thing, or after talking to a divorce lawyer that I said I needed your product. I'm just making this up on the spot. But now you know when to contact them. It's going to come into play later on when you start developing those channels. So you're going to ask, how did you make the decision? What was going through your mind? Next, you're going to say, who would you refer it to? Literally going to ask, who would you tell people of the product? And they may tell you, I'm not going to refer it to anybody because it's not good enough to refer. That's a data point, and that's very important. There's something out there called a Net Promoter Score. Look it up. It asks them, what are the chances that you would refer this to your friends and family? And if they say no, then your product is not good enough. If they love it, they'll refer it. Or they might not even think about it. They say, gee, I didn't think about it. You can ask them, what would make you think about it? Or they may say, absolutely, I've already told 10 of my friends, or, I'm going to tell my buddies at the poker game or at the bowling alley or at the gym. But you ask them, who would you refer it to? And if you get them to trust you enough and they've had a good enough experience that they refer you, then you are getting to winner, winner, chicken dinner. That's how you know they love the product. And this is the bonus question that I ask. What would you say if you knew you couldn't offend me? I always explain to them, hey, just give it to me straight. If you know you couldn't offend me, what would you say to me? And let them just have at it. And they may look at you and they say, you know what? I'm glad you said that because your product really sucks. I just need to let you know. Sometimes people will tell you your baby is ugly and they have to give you the harsh truth. And you are going to thank them for being so honest and open with you, because later on they'll participate in subsequent conversations. And if you can win them over, you've got a fan for life. They may say, I hated it first, but then Ed made all these adjustments and now I love the product and I want to refer it out there, and you're going to find out. Let me explain how you know you're on the right track on somebody loving your product. When you're going to find that persona that loves the product, when they start offering it to you. One of the things that I found out, even on this YouTube channel, that somebody told me, they said, Ed, when you start getting compliments and comments saying, I don't know why this channel doesn't have 1 million viewers or 1 million users, it should be going gangbusters right now. You know you're onto something. Somebody loves you enough to express their opinion and come to you and say, I don't know why you're not more popular or why everybody doesn't use you. That's the user you want to focus on. You want to study that person. When I get that type of compliment, I ask, can I ask you some questions? And I'm going to ask you what, when, how, who, and I'm going to glean all that information. Those are signals that somebody loves your product, because I guarantee you this, sometimes the person who loves your product and the person you think should love your product are two completely different things. You might have a completely separate user group come by and say, I know you're selling for this, but we started using it for that, and it was absolutely amazing. Those are the people that you want to focus on. So right now, what you're doing is you're being open and you're basically sifting through the entire market to see who loves your product. And that's going to be so important later on to replicate that over and over again, because you can replicate the people who love the product. If one person loves your product, there could be 1 million other people out there who love your product. You'd rather get that rabid fan, that fan who's so sold out because they'll work with you, rather than having hundreds of people go, meh, didn't like it. There's no value, and there's no point in telling investors. They'll see through that a mile away. And remember, you're going to start telling the story to the investors. So here it is. You take your unique value proposition, your user ICP, smash them together, get one user to love the product. How are you going to do that? Well, you got to build your MVP. You probably already thought about it. You can do founder-led sales, hand-to-hand combat, sell it to them. You're going to observe them using your product and say nothing. Get all the information. Usually there are some iterations that you might have to do. You might have to adjust your MVP over and over again. And then you're going to ask, what did you experience? When did you use it? How did you make the decision? Who would you refer to? And if you get positives and all that, you're going to also say, what would you say if you knew you couldn't offend me? Just give me the straight dope. Give it to me tough. Hit me right between the eyes, and they'll give you the feedback, and you'll be able to improve your product. And once you get that one user love your product, you can move on to the millions. And that's where the rest of this early stage startup funding canvas is going to come into play. Watch the other videos, watch this whole series, go through all the other boxes. I'm going to do this video series. I'm going to go box by box by box and show you. And then it's all going to go into the playlist. And you're going to use that to apply for my angel investment fund and startup sponsorship content. Thanks again. Like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to hear your opinion. And I will see you in the next video.